Welcome to Voodoo Whiskey Gaming, and this is my late review of Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Extraction. I played it on the Xbox Series X. It's also available on the Xbox One, PS4, PS5, PC, and Stadia even. So basically there is this parasite that creates these giant plant growths and mutates things that are possibly people called Archeans. And Rainbow Six creates the Reactivision, which is kind of this science division that needs combatants to go in and collect data on the creatures as well as their nests and so on. And that is what you are a part of as a Rainbow Six Siege character, essentially, who is now playing in this game. And one thing that I didn't enjoy about this is, while I like the concept, they just kind of drip feed you little bits of information, but I wouldn't exactly call it like a great story. Let's get into the audio, and the first thing that really stands out to me is I was actually impressed with the voiceover work. I mean, there's not a ton of it, not as much as I might like, but what is there is very well done in my opinion. As for the sound effects, I think the sound effects are very well done for when you're breaking through walls, shooting, dealing with these creatures. The creatures all have these kind of gross, creepy noises, but there's other things in the world, and you get sound cues, and that's actually very beneficial. And then there's the music, which is okay, it's there, it works, but it's nothing memorable. Now let's get into the gameplay mechanics and whatnot, and this is a first-person co-op shooter predominantly. Now I say that because you can also play solo. And it actually works fairly well solo. The game does scale its difficulty based on how many people you are playing with. It will be more difficult the more people you play with, as well as you ramp up the difficulty, obviously. But that being said, I do think some of the objectives are not necessarily well designed for solo play. This game was very clearly designed for co-op, and then they went, oh, maybe we should slap some solo-ness in there. Now, how the game actually functions is you go into a mission, and you can do quick play in any of the different areas, but it is very much you pick an area, and then it will pick from its random assortment of missions, which there's not a horrible variety, but it does get repetitive. After a while, you have definitely completed the same mission time and time again, maybe just in a different area, and they do try and mix it up because that mission you may have done in the first zone of the map, and this time you'll do it in the second zone, and it'll be in a different area of that second zone, but it gets repetitive because it really does become the same thing over and over. The only time you get a more unique mission, and even then you will repeat that one several times, is if your character dies. They don't really die, they get put in a stasis foam and you have to go rescue them. But again, even that gets repetitive after a while. This does feel very much like Siege because you're using Siege characters, so they have their Siege abilities, as well as each character is unique and has their own unique weapons as well as weapon progression. Which I'm going to say that didn't make sense to me in some of the cases, like starting out with a full-powered rifle and your final supposedly superior gun is like a submachine gun. But you also unlock points and experience to rank up your characters, to get those guns and attachments. They all already have their attachments, but it's also so that you can use those points to get new React tech, which will help you better execute missions. And I will say, playing solo, it was fine. Playing co-op was more fun, but less because of the game and more because getting to play with your buddies is always fun. It wasn't like this game was just so exhilarating and just the best thing ever. Whether you're playing solo or with friends, it gets repetitive. I think it's just a little less noticeable when you're playing with your friends. But I guess we'll go into some of the missions. Some of them you have to like lure an enemy to a certain area to capture them. Sometimes you have to kill certain enemies in order to attract like an elite enemy to kill. You have to deal with these things called nests. I mean, there is a variety, but when you have 3 objectives, 1 per each zone, and you're repeating this game so that you can rank up your character, you're going to replay the same missions. Maybe not in the same order. Maybe this time you'll go in and you'll have these 3 missions and you did 2 of them last time. But that next time you go in and do a mission, you're gonna have one of those ones you've done before 2 or 3, 4, 5 times. You know, it gets really repetitive. Now let's get into the controls, and the controls are amazing. I mean, I don't have anything to add to that. I think the controls worked fantastic. I never had any complaints, so let's get into the graphics and visuals, and it's a beautiful game. Just plain old, it is a beautiful game. I think the character designs are a little overly tactical. But I think the amount of detail in them, the amount of detail in their animations, in the cutscenes, the amount of detail you can actually see in the world, I think that's all really impressive. Like, I was really blown away considering how unimportant, honestly, overall the story felt. The amount of detail they put into those cutscenes was truly impressive, and the level of realism in the characters is also really impressive. I like the variety of weapons you have. There could be more attachments and stuff, and you could do a bit more with the customization, I think, but overall I think what they do is pretty cool, and I think it looks good. I do think some of their weapon choices don't necessarily make sense, like civilian model weapons being used by a military unit is kind of weird, and you can tell visually on some of these. As well as, I'm never a big fan of like the really wacky and out there like camos, but they have those in there, and I gotta say the amount of detail in them is actually very impressive. There are also a couple of like legitimately cursed looking guns to me. As for the world, I think they did a good job with the world. I like that it takes place in our world, but like it's this weird parasite-ridden version. Not far enough in the future where like it's being overgrown and stuff, but you can see the beginning of that. I think the creature design is mediocre, I'd say. Each of the creatures kind of come off of this one base model, and they all have these minor variations of maybe how they move, or where their weak spot is, or where their, like, dangerous elements are, but they're all really very much based off of this one thing. And obviously there are some more unique ones, but the vast majority feel pretty samey. Like, a little bit of variation, but not enough. They could have put more effort into the creation, in my opinion. I do like the effort they put into the world so that each zone does feel different in each city you're in. So that's actually pretty cool, because when you think about it, there's quite a few of them, and I think they did good with that. I think the visuals of this game are really one of the standouts, personally. So to wrap this up, I gotta say, like, with the minimal story, with how repetitive the gameplay is, going out and coughing up $40 for this game, yeah, it's not a full-priced game, still not worth it. If you have Xbox Game Pass, definitely think that's worth it, because after having played this for several days, I got really bored with it, and long before I was done playing it, it felt like a chore to get in and play. So if you have Game Pass, yeah, I think it's worth downloading. There is fun to be had there, but as somebody who did pay the $40 for this game, I gotta say, it's really hard to justify that. This may become one of those games that I'll end up coming back to occasionally when I need a break from whatever my main game is, but it's definitely not something I'm gonna be playing daily or even weekly. Okay, so in the comment section down below, why don't you tell me, are you still playing Rainbow Six Siege? Not gonna lie, I haven't played that in I don't know how long. And as always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button. And if you like what I'm doing in general, share and subscribe. Have a good one.